Ricky Schroder won the hearts of Americans in 1979 with his critically acclaimed role in The Champ, which he starred with Oscar winner Jon Voight. He's been one of America's favorite TV stars from his days on the classic sitcom Silver Spoons in the 80s. Then he grew into roles on hits like NYPD Blue and one of my favorites, Lonesome Dove. He became a busy producer, writer, and director. His latest projects are the Real American Heroes Foundation, which creates films and TV shows telling true stories of our veterans, first responders, and Gold Star families. Please give a warm welcome to Ricky Schroder. All right, before we get into the focus of the interview, there's a scene that you did in Lonesome Dove that may be the most disturbing scene I've ever seen in the movie. It's when you, in your role as Newt, were eaten up by a gazillion snakes in the river.
Yeah.
That still haunts me. I just want you to know. I don't know what they did, how much they paid you to do that scene, and if those snakes, I'm sure they weren't totally real.
No, they weren't.
Okay. Makes
were
me feel
rubber.
better.
Yeah.
Even if they were rubber, I wouldn't have done what you did. I just don't believe in it. It's such an honor to have you here.
I'm glad to be here. What a great audience. Thank you for having me.
Well, you've had a storied career, both in front and behind the camera, but you're doing some things now that I think are just exceptional. And one of them is focusing on a group you've created, the Council on Pornography Reform, which, you know, I'm thinking, wow, that's a tough calling, because a lot of people would probably say, oh, there he goes. He's trying to tell us what we can and can't see. But tell us what motivated you to believe this is an important topic to take on.
So Council on Pornography Reform came out of Real American Heroes Foundation, which I started, which is a 501c3 nonprofit. And our mission is to tell stories of first responders and Gold Star families and people that wear the uniform. But I look at the perversion that has permeated our culture, starting when I was 9 years old. You know, we talked backstage, I saw my first video of pornography when I was 9 years old. And it's something that I've seen now for 45 years pushed into our culture when it never should have been. You know, I remember when the milk store first started showing girly magazines behind the cash register, and then they moved them into the aisles, and then they moved them into our homes and our phones using the First Amendment. And so the First Amendment was freedom of speech, and it was written by our forefathers prior to the invention of the camera.
Yeah.
If you think about when the camera was invented about 150 years ago, you can now capture pictures of perversion and then distribute them to people. Prior to that, you had to engage or witness perversion. But once they had a camera, they could start pushing it to us. And I see a real problem with our society because of 40 years of pornography pushed into our culture. And they used the First Amendment when it never applied, the First Amendment. The First Amendment is for speech. It had nothing to do with photographs. And so we created a documentary series we're producing now called Erotic Erosion that looks at the deleterious effects of pornography for 45 years.
And that's something I think that a lot of people would say, well, what harm is it? But there is harm, and that's what you've tried to help people to understand.
Yeah, there's a lot of harm, and there's things we can do about it. There's things that just because it's been this way doesn't mean it has to stay this way. When adult content first came out on the internet, it was all in the .xxx URL, and so you could actually block it at a home router. But they closed down the .xxx URL, and they pushed all adult content into the .com retail world. So one of our goals at the Council on Porn Reform is to push adult content back into the .xxx URL and get it out of our .com world. Another goal.
That would be a worthy thing, for sure.
Another goal is we want an off switch, Governor. We want an off switch. Americans like choice. And why, if you pay the bill to AT&T and Verizon, why can't you have the choice to have adult content turned off to your phone? You can. They have the technology now. They can shut off pornography per zip code if they want. And so we're looking at a county in Colorado, for example, that's interested in becoming the first pornography-free dry county.
Wow.
And like alcohol dry, but pornography dry. because the First Amendment was never intended to push pornography into our home.
You have such an extraordinary platform, a Hollywood personality that everyone knows, and you're using your voice and your platform to talk about ways to help our veterans and tell their stories, and to help families be able to fight against this destructive disease of pornography. Ricky, I don't even know what to say other than, God bless you, my brother. Thank you, my friend, for being a courageous person and saying, we won't just sit back and let it happen without a fight. What a great thing. And let me just say to our audience, I hope you'll follow Ricky Schroder online. Join with him in the efforts that he's about. Learn more about the Real American Heroes Foundation. You can also find out more about the Council on Pornography Reform. If you go to Huckabee.tv, we will connect you to the organizations that Ricky is so courageously creating and working with. And I hope that a lot of Americans will be his partner. If you enjoyed this video, I hope you'll consider clicking the subscribe button below and the notification bell next to it so you don't miss any of our future videos when they go up online.